Hey, hi, hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and I want to talk about the books I DNF'd, the books that were disappointing, and the books that I thought were just bad. So originally I was going to separate these videos, and I realized that would be too much, and I really didn't have enough for each one, so I'm going to lump them all together. The DNFs I really don't have that much to say about, because some of them I don't even remember that I read, but I went back and checked my Goodreads and my Overdrive app, so let's get started. All right. Starting with the ones I DNF'd or did not finish, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This was my second attempt at reading this. I tried the audio, I was bored, so I didn't finish it. Then I have This Is How You Lose the Time War, which sounded so interesting. It's like two AI agents or something. Time travel and writing love letters, but it was just weird and confusing, and I was not feeling it. And that one's by Amal El Motar, Max Gladstone. Was not for me, so I let it go. Then I DNF'd The Time Traveler's Wife, which was on my list of books I wanted to read in 2020, and I just hated it. It was weird. There were some really uncomfortable scenes. I didn't like the age difference between the main characters at certain points in their life, and I was like, this is gross. Honey, Don't List by Christina Lauren. I talked about this in my most surprising reads because their latest book, In a Holidays, I loved, but their previous works, including the Honey, Don't List, were really not for me. I was just really bored and I didn't care about the characters, so I didn't finish it. Then I have Well Met by Jen DeLuca. I think so many people loved this one. It was a contemporary romance set at a Renaissance fair. Well, the main character, she was just very bland, and then the love interest hated him, so I didn't go any further. And I don't know the percentages in these because I wasn't gonna look that up, and a lot of these I end up DNFing about 20-25% into the book. Normal People by Sally Rooney. I hated the writing style in this. If I remember correctly, there wasn't a lot of like punctuation or quotation marks. There was something weird just about not even like the writing voice, just like the style, literally grammatically, it couldn't jam. I couldn't jive with, so I stopped reading that. I mentioned this in my book haul, but House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, if that's his name. It was dull, and it's huge, and it has a weird format, and I just was not going to put all that energy into continuing with storylines that I didn't care about. So I did not finish that one. I tried to listen to A Night of the Seven Kingdoms on audio, and that is one of the books in the Song of Ice and Fire worlds, but it's not like I wasn't enjoying it. It was just making me want to reread Game of Thrones so bad, and I was like, I don't have time for that right now. Unless Winds of Winter was coming out, then I would make time. So I was just like, I'll have to put that one on the back burner and come back to it at a later. I also didn't finish The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and that was mainly because my audiobook hold ran out, and I was like, not in the mood to continue it. I was liking the story. The part where I was a bit slow, and I didn't love the audiobook because they played music at the beginning of the chapter, and it lasted a little too long, and the narrator would start speaking and the music was still going, and I was like, no. So I do have a physical copy. When I decide to read it again, I'll probably just read the physical. I also didn't finish From Scratch, which is a memoir by Tim B. Locke. I talked about this in another video, but it was mainly because I thought it was going to be a much happier memoir, and it very much focuses on grief from her losing her husband, and I just didn't want to read that. And I don't know when I will, but I do plan to get back to that at some point. Then I have Dead to Her by Sarah Pinborough, and I cannot tell you why I DNF'd this. I assume it's boring. I don't even remember starting this book. I don't remember a damn thing about it, so it must have been dull as hell. And those are all of the books that I DNF'd. I highly suggest that if you are not enjoying a story, that you just let it go. You just DNF it and move on, because there's so many other books out there you could be reading. Why waste your time on the ones that are just eh? I mean, I do sometimes understand I hate read, I get it. So on to my disappointing books. I have a little more to say about these. So I have Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. This was a young adult thriller, and the main character is Enchanted. She's a young Black girl who wants to become a singer, but her parents are like, we want you to focus on school. So she, behind her parents' back, goes to a singing competition, and she is noticed by this famous R&B singer, Corey Fields. And somehow he convinces her parents to let her go on tour with him as a great opportunity to jumpstart her career. And at first it is. And then he starts to take advantage of her and is very sexually inappropriate with her since he is an adult and she is a minor. And it goes from there. It is also starts out the first chapter, you find out that Corey Fields has been killed. So there is that thriller aspect. And the chapters flash back between the present when Corey was killed and you're trying to figure out who, and then also starts back in the past before Enchanted met him, and then the storylines come together. So for that reason, it was a very, the pacing was great, a very quick read. I was just disappointed because I had heard it compared to basically R. Kelly's story, and some people and the author said it wasn't. However, I have watched like every documentary, all the interviews with R. Kelly, and this was literally his story, just changed the names. So I just wanted it to be unique because I was basically reading it and I was like, well, I already know how this goes, besides the murder part. But yeah, a lot of people did enjoy it. I think it talks about a lot of important things like the over-sexualization of Black girls, the power, improper power differences between people in certain relationships and work relationships, taking advantage, grooming, things like that. So there are important topics. I think a lot of people would enjoy it, especially younger people, younger girls. Definitely a great conversation there. But for me, and if you're very familiar with R. Kelly's case, maybe you won't enjoy it as much. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. This is his first adult novel. It's adult science fiction. I never read his Aragon series, but to be honest, the cover, I was like, oh, it's pretty. And so I borrowed it from the library and it started out so amazing. So I was like, yes, a cover borrow, because it's not a cover buy. Something that I was attracted to by the cover, and it actually is really amazing. And it was so good for like 50%. It starts popping from the get-go. And I was wondering how it was going to maintain that pace because the book is like 850 pages long. And that's the issue. The first 50% is amazing. And then it starts to be like, okay, when are we going to wrap this up? Where is the climax? Like, you think there's a climax and then it keeps going. You think there's a climax and then it keeps going. And it's a lot of space battles, first contact with aliens. So the meat of the story, I really enjoyed. And for that many pages, I don't think he did a great job on character development. It was much more focused on the science of time travel or space travel and cryo, when they're traveling through hyperspace, and the space battles, which were fun, but I would like some more character development. And some things became repetitive. Like I said, they traveled through like hyperspace for a long time. So he would talk about them going into cryo, and some things like that need to be explained in the beginning. But every time they do it, we don't need to explain it again and again and what they did during that time. And it became repetitive. It definitely could have been shortened. So overall, I thought it was a good read. It just was too long. Then I have Beach Read by Emily Henry, which is on a lot of people's best of the year. And I had heard so many good things about it. I saw it everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. And I heard Beach Read. I saw the bright cover and I was like, ooh, a cute contemporary romance. I'm in the mood. And no, this is not a cute contemporary romance. And I'm not saying it's a bad book. However, manage your expectations going into it. I do not appreciate how this is marketed as beach read, this light summer read, because it is not. It is a romance, but both characters have gone through some tough times. Nigel, quiet. One of the main characters, January, her father just passed, and in him passing, she learned that he had a whole another life. He had a mistress, he had a separate house. And so she's trying to deal with that and trying to get a book out for her publisher. So she goes to his beach house to maybe root through his things, see if she can learn about who he was and maybe get some inspiration for another book. The other main character, Gus, has been going through something. I don't know if I want to say what it was because you don't know in the beginning, so maybe that's kind of spoilery, but he just went through, a big life event. And so he's dealing with that. He's also trying to write a book. And so they're neighbors during the summer and they make a bet that they're going to write each other's genre and whoever wins has to like hype up the other one or whatever. So they spend a lot of time together, taking each other on like book dates to get inspiration for their novels. And I didn't like them. I didn't like the characters, so I couldn't be invested in the romance. January was just very much in her head instead of like asking people things or being straight up and talking, saying how she felt, asking questions. She just thought about it in her head. Gus was okay, but honestly, there were like some side characters that I cared about more. So if I don't care about the characters, I can't care about their romance. I didn't care if they got together or not. There were some other random things that really bothered me. Like there was a sex scene and they're having sex up against a bookshelf and they don't ever say that the bookshelf is mounted, but they're hitting the bookshelf and nothing is falling off. Nothing falls on their head. Nothing shakes. I don't like that. That really bothered me. But overall, I know some people really love this. And if you go into it maybe thinking that this isn't just a simple, lighthearted contemporary that's going to talk about more heavy topics like grief and loss, maybe you will enjoy it more than me. But to me, it was a letdown. And also, I'm tired of characters being named January, and I don't like the name Gus. So then unfortunately, I have Take a Hint, Dani Brown on this list by Talia Hibbert. I loved Get a Life, Chloe Brown so much. So I was really hyped for this one. I just didn't connect to Dani as much or Zaf. I liked them, but I didn't love them. I don't know what it was. It could have been my mood. I did buy it, so I plan to try to read it again and see if my feelings change because a lot of people loved it. And I feel like it's either you loved Chloe more or you loved Dani more. I'm definitely team Chloe right now. I'm still going to read Act Your Age, Eve Brown, because overall, I mean, I really enjoyed these books. But Dani Brown just didn't hit like I wanted it to, and I can't put my finger on what exactly it was, but it just didn't wow me, and I was sad. Where the Lost Wander by Amy Harmon. So this is a historical fiction. Amy Harmon also wrote What the Wind Knows, which is a historical fiction romance with a little bit of time travel. So like a sci-fi element, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite books ever. So I was expecting to love this one. This one's set like in the 1800s. I think there is a family and they're from Missouri and they are basically taking the Oregon Trail over to Oregon and California as settlers. So there's obviously Native American people who help lead them across the country. And so the daughter of the family, who's a white lady, has a romance with the Native American who is leading them there. And for some reason, I just could not. Nigel! Oh my God, I hope y'all didn't see that. And for some reason, I was not sold on their romance. It just seemed really quick to me. I wasn't really, I didn't believe in it. So I didn't have that emotional connection that I had to her previous book. So I did love the parts with the family and their journey. But for me, I went into it for the romance and that let me down. So I didn't love it overall. And I have Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. Elantris is definitely my least favorite Sanderson that I've read to date. It's not a terrible book, but I think it is his first published book. And I just went into it thinking it wasn't going to be as bad as some people make it out to be. And I was wrong. It's just very long. And of course, in Sanderson's style, the ending is great. But in his other books, I felt like the first part of the book was worth it to get to the ending. And for this one, it did not feel worth it. It was too long. One of the points of views really dragged the story for me because I couldn't stand him. He was like this religious figure in the story. And so that would take me out of the story. It took me a while to read it. I finally got the audio to finish it because I was like, I don't really care, but I'm going to finish it. And then on the last maybe 200 pages, I did care. But I was like, I had to get through all of that to get here, and I don't like that. I don't know. Some people enjoy it more than others. Some people, it's their least favorite. It definitely is my least favorite Sanderson at this point. So take with that what you will. Then I have Aurora Burning with Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. So I read Aurora Rising and I really loved it when I read it. I reread it before reading Aurora Burning and I still really enjoyed it. Maybe didn't love it as much as I thought I did, but I went into Aurora Burning and I was bored for the majority of it. The beginning starts off great because it takes off from, or starts where the first book left off, which was some action. And then the middle is such a drag. And then the ending is great. It's very much focused on a romance that's based on a trope that I'm so tired of. And I just was not interested. I want the other character stories. I want space. I want battles and all of that. And you do get that, but very much around the romance. And I didn't like that. So I probably will finish the series because I'll just borrow the audio from the library, but it was very disappointing. And I don't know, that maybe Jay's taking on too many projects at once and he needs to slow his roll and focus, but this one wasn't it. Then I have the Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James. This was a Is it a horror novel or a thriller or a mystery? I'm not sure, but everyone was saying, oh my God, this is so scary and spooky and ooh. And I read it and was so bored. I was like, okay, like I don't have much beyond that. I thought the main character was very, I'm not like other girls, because she's like, I'm not like other girls because I like to read books. Okay, girl. And so she wasn't doing it for me. The whole story, I was like, okay, I don't know. It was very meh to me, a very meh experience. And so many people were like, oh, this is such a good story, so scary, so gripping. And I don't know what gripped y'all, but it did not grip me. And last on disappointing is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I don't even know why I went into this with anticipation or expectations, but so many people love this series and it's like their favorite, and they always talk about Kelvin and his damn coat and blah, blah, blah. And it was dull. The concept is it's so good. The 4 Londons sounds really interesting, but to me, it was very plain. Just very, here's the world a little bit. Here's a problem. Here's them getting kind of into trouble. Oh, they're out of trouble. The end. It was just very ABC. I don't know, just very stale, very beige. I don't remember anything beside Kel has a coat and Lila is the worst. That's it. So, boo. Lastly, I have the worst books for me this year, and I don't have that many because I DNF'd so many books, but I have The Wives by Taryn Fisher. This story was our main character, and she's married to a man who also has 2 other wives, but they know about each other. And so I was thinking it was going to be like a positive spin on this baby, but it was not. And she basically, they know about each other, but they don't know who each other are. But she basically finds the information of one of the other wives, and then she gets stalkerish. But there's a trope that I do not like in books, and I can't say it without being spoilery because that's the big twist, and I hated it, that it was in this. And it was just a mess. It was a mess. I couldn't stand it. Also, Bunny by Mona Awad. I don't know what that was. And it wasn't, I don't think it went above my head. I just think it was poorly written. It's supposed to be like a dark academia. The main character is very much an outsider, and she's at this prestigious writing program. And then she gets in with the main girls, and they're doing some weird shit, like weird rituals and stuff, and trying to create the perfect man or something. I read it and I finished, and I was like, I read a lot of reviews, and I still was like, and I was like, do I need to reread it? And I said, no, I'm not. It was terrible. It was stupid. I'm never going to reread that again. It was awful. And that's all I got to say. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. We did not need this prequel. If she was going to write a Hunger Games prequel, could have been on anybody else. Anybody. Mags was right there. Okay? Finnick was right there. But she chose Coriolanus Snow, which, God, I hate that first name. He was just terrible. And when I heard it was going to be about Snow, I was like, ooh, maybe it's going to be a really good villain origin story, which I'll still hate him, but maybe we're going to find a solid reason why he's terrible. And you really don't get that. His family's terrible. He was born terrible. He stays terrible. And nothing made me, like, at least give me something that I'm like, okay, well, what you're doing is wrong. I kind of understand, but I don't. He was just the worst. The entire time, he was manipulative and selfish. The only part I liked was seeing the old Hunger Games, because you see like the 10th Hunger Games, and it was very basic, very different from the Hunger Games in the present. Like, they took the tributes to the zoo, they barely fed them. Some of them died before the games actually started. So that was interesting, but Snow was, I hated it. It was slow, pacing. Suzanne could have kept that. And she could have been quiet. She could have just been rich and been quiet, but she gave us that mess, and I'm glad I did not buy it. This one I'm just going to mention briefly, Daughter of the Pirate King. I can't even remember who this is by. I unhauled it, but it just was one of the most basic books I've ever read. Like, I've read more complex middle grade than this YA novel. Like, it felt like a children's book. But it wasn't. It was supposed to be a young adult novel. Like, it was just so basic. I saw every single thing coming. I could predict what was going to happen in the next chapter. Like, it was such a boring read. And since the second book was already released, it kind of spoils a big twist in the book because you already know the title of the next book, which tells you what the twist in the first book is. No, save your time. And then lastly, the worst book I read this year was definitely A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. Obviously, there was some drama surrounding this one. I read it myself. I was really excited though because it was pitched as an adult magic school, like adult book. It was a magic school. It was very dangerous. There's lots of monsters. Like, you graduate or you die was kind of the tagline, and I was here for it. But it did not execute that well. It is only like 250 pages. It is very much a young adult novel, but at an adult price. And it is so boring. It's like her first draft, like she was developing the world and she just wrote it out and then she added in some dialogue and she was like, here's the first book. For 250 pages, it felt way longer. I would just finish a chapter, which they were super long, which also makes books feel longer to me when the chapters are long. And I would finish one chapter and be like, oof, I need a break. The main character, Elle, to me, it's in first person, so you're in her head, which is also a downer because she's just like a downer, and it was very limiting because when you would get world building, it was just an info dump. So instead of getting third person where you kind of get a better overall experience and description of the world just as a character's going through it, you just got Elle being like encountering one thing and then giving you 8 paragraphs on that said thing and explaining it. It was like an encyclopedia entry and it was so boring. And apparently this is dreary fan fiction. Miss me with that mess. None of the characters to me were that well fleshed out. They were very two-dimensional. How repetitive it was with, there's monsters, you're gonna die. Oh, there's a monster, you're gonna die. There's a monster, you're gonna die. So those issues everyone had with it about the dreadlocks and whatever, like I addressed those on a different video, but outside of those things, the book was just terribly written. Like it was already short, but she needed to find a different way to explain the school, to explain the world without just giving you paragraph upon paragraph of explanation. And then the plot really doesn't come in until like the 70% mark. And I'm like, for such a short book, it's so slow. It's not character driven. It's not plot driven. It's just world info dumping, and I did not like it. It's so upsetting though, because the covers, both the US and the UK covers are beautiful. And I was like, I hope I love it so I can get both. But I didn't. So I cannot get either. Sadness. I wish I was Trash Box 20 Jessica because she would have bought them anyway. But I am not her anymore. I've grown, I think. But that was my list. So those are the books I DNF'd, the books that were disappointing, and the books I just flat out did not like. But overall, 2020 was an amazing reading year for me. So even though I might have gone through quite a few books just then, I read a lot of amazing books. And my best books video will be coming soon after this one. So let me know if you had any books that were just awful, that were disappointing, that you DNF'd. Do you DNF books? I thank you so much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up. Check out my description. There's always all the books that I mentioned, links to information about stuff going on in the world. I am an affiliate for bookshop.org. So if you buy any books through my link, I do get a small commission. And my social media, if you want to follow me and or Nigel. But I hope you subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.